What if the genetic story of Illinois, a state defined by its prairie heartlands, industrial cities, and deep political roots, turned out to be far more unexpected than its history books suggest? A groundbreaking new genetic study reveals that the people of Illinois are shaped by an astonishing mix of ancestral threads, blending early Midwestern pioneers, indigenous heritage, waves of European immigrants, African diasporas, and surprising traces from across the globe. These findings disrupt familiar narratives and offer a striking new perspective on the state's cultural and biological identity. Let's uncover the surprising genetic origins of Illinoisans. Groundbreaking study maps. Illinois' genetic origin. A groundbreaking new genetic study is giving Illinoisans a deeper look into their roots, revealing a far more intricate and globally connected ancestry than many imagined. Led by researchers at the University of Illinois and supported by advanced computing systems, this project analyzed the DNA of thousands of participants across the state, focusing particularly on underrepresented groups like African Americans. By collecting DNA samples and comparing them against global genomic databases, scientists were able to create a high-resolution genetic map of Illinois. What they found surprised even the experts. Many participants had ties not only to West Africa or Western Europe as expected, but also to regions like Central Africa, Eastern Europe, and even the Middle East. These connections reflect centuries of migration, trade, colonization, and forced displacement. For African American participants, the project helped trace direct ancestral links to specific ethnic groups and regions in Africa, offering clarity to family histories that had long been disrupted by slavery and systemic record loss. Meanwhile, others discovered lesser-known Native American or mixed European ancestry that added new layers to their identities. This study doesn't just chart DNA, it reveals the stories of movement, resilience, and connection. It shows that Illinois is a true genetic crossroads, shaped by people from all corners of the world. For many, this research is not only informative but healing, providing names, places, and context for family histories long fragmented by time. It marks a new chapter in understanding where Illinoisans come from and how their shared genetic threads form the state's unique social fabric. Think you know your roots? Subscribe now to uncover the hidden stories in our DNA. Unexpected ancestral roots discovered in Illinois. What does it mean to be from Illinois? For many, the answer has traditionally been tied to known heritage: German, Irish, African American, Mexican. But new genetic research is revealing that the real story runs deeper and is far more complex. In recent large-scale studies, participants from all backgrounds submitted DNA samples as part of a project designed to explore regional genetic diversity. The findings turned up surprises. Individuals who believed their roots were strictly European learned of African, Middle Eastern, or Asian ancestry. Others who identified as African American uncovered connections to indigenous communities or specific West African ethnic groups never discussed in family lore. These discoveries not only broaden our understanding of heritage, they challenge the way people define themselves. One of the most eye-opening aspects of the study was the frequency of hidden ancestry, lines of descent that had been lost, buried, or left unspoken due to social or historical pressures. Interracial marriages, migration patterns, and the legacy of slavery all played a role in shaping this silent complexity. For many Illinoisans, the DNA results sparked emotional journeys. Some have reached out to distant cousins across continents. Others have dived into genealogical records with renewed purpose. Each unexpected revelation adds a personal chapter to a much bigger story, that of a state shaped by waves of human movement, cultural blending, and shared histories. In short, this research reveals that the people of Illinois are linked not just by geography, but by a deeply woven global tapestry of ancestry, unexpected, rich, and worth celebrating. Scientists trace migration patterns. Through DNA doesn't just tell us who we are, it reveals where we've been. In Illinois, Scientists are now using genetic data to trace the sweeping migration patterns that have shaped the state's population over thousands of years. The story begins long before statehood. Ancient DNA studies from archaeological sites in Illinois show that early Native American groups lived in the area for millennia, leaving behind genetic footprints that continue in some indigenous communities today. These populations, like the Hopewell and Mississippian cultures, created thriving settlements, and their DNA shows continuity rather than replacement over time, suggesting cultural evolution more than mass migration. Fast forward to more recent centuries, and the story expands. European colonization brought a wave of settlers from Germany, Ireland, Poland, and Scandinavia, many of whom migrated to Illinois during the 1800s for farmland and opportunity. The Great Migration of African Americans from the South in the early 20th century added another major layer to Illinois' genetic landscape, especially in cities like Chicago. Today, scientists see traces of all these movements in the DNA of modern Illinoisans. Haplogroups, a kind of genetic signature, help researchers link individuals to ancestors who crossed oceans, borders, and eras. In many cases, these findings reveal migration routes that don't appear in official records, but live on biologically. This genetic breadcrumb trail not only enriches personal identity, but also deepens our collective understanding of history. The people of Illinois are, in many ways, walking archives of ancient and recent migrations. Their DNA is living evidence of journeys taken, choices made, and cultures fused, telling the story of a state forever in motion, shaped by the people who made it home. Midwestern genetics show diverse global links. The Midwest has long been portrayed as a cultural heartland of the United States, defined by wide-open skies, hard work, and community values. But beneath that familiar surface lies a fascinating genetic story that stretches far beyond national borders. A recent deep dive into Midwestern genetics, with Illinois at its center, reveals that the region's people carry ancestry linked to almost every continent on Earth. Researchers analyzing genetic data from thousands of individuals in Illinois and neighboring states discovered unexpected patterns. European ancestry, particularly from Germany, Ireland, and Scandinavia, remains prominent, reflecting historical immigration trends. But the story doesn't end there. Traces of ancestry from West and Central Africa, East and South Asia, the Middle East, and indigenous North American groups weave into the mix, offering a far more global portrait of Midwestern identity. For example, Latino communities in Illinois often carry blended genetic backgrounds from indigenous Mesoamerican roots, European colonizers, and African heritage, tracing histories that span continents and centuries. African American families often reflect genetic ties to specific regions and tribes across Africa, along with varying levels of European and Native American ancestry. These findings challenge assumptions about the Midwest being genetically or culturally homogeneous. In fact, the region's genetic diversity rivals that of coastal states. The Midwest may seem quieter in media narratives, but its DNA tells a story of movement, convergence, and complexity. What this tells us is simple yet powerful. The people of Illinois and the broader Midwest are global citizens by blood. Their stories of migration, resilience, and interconnectedness are written not only in history books, but also in their genes. This research reshapes how we see the Midwest, proving that beneath its familiar image lies a truly international past. Illinoisans' DNA challenges long-held assumptions. If you ask most Illinoisans about their ancestry, you'll often hear confident answers: German, Irish, Polish, African American, or Mexican. But when DNA tests entered the picture, the story took an unexpected turn. New genetic research is revealing that many long-held assumptions about Illinois ancestry are incomplete, or in some cases, entirely off base. Participants in recent genetic studies were stunned to discover lineages they'd never imagined. One family that identified solely as Italian found significant North African and Middle Eastern ancestry. Others, raised with stories of European descent, uncovered indigenous or West African roots. These surprises highlight how oral history, personal identity, and actual ancestry don't always align. For African American Illinoisans, many of whom face gaps in their family records due to slavery, genetic testing provides something invaluable: connection. DNA can identify specific regions or tribes in West Africa, helping reconstruct stories lost over generations. At the same time, the discovery of European ancestry, often the result of historic power imbalances, opens complicated but important conversations about the legacy of American history. These revelations challenge not only personal assumptions, but also broader narratives about who Illinoisans are. The genetic map of the state is far more intricate than once believed, shaped by migration, colonization, displacement, and love across boundaries. The findings remind us that racial and ethnic categories are social constructs. Our DNA refuses to be neatly boxed in. In a time when identity matters deeply, these genetic insights offer a new way to see ourselves and each other, not as members of separate groups, but as individuals connected through overlapping histories. The Illinois story is not one of simple roots, but of tangled, beautiful, and very human ancestry. Genetic research highlights hidden heritage in Illinois. Beneath the surface of everyday life in Illinois lies a vast reservoir of hidden heritage, stories untold, connections unrecognized, and identities waiting to be rediscovered. Thanks to recent breakthroughs in genetic research, many Illinoisans are now uncovering family histories they never knew existed, shaking up long-held beliefs about where they come from and who they are. Through DNA testing and ancestry mapping, scientists have helped thousands of participants trace their genetic origins, often with surprising results. Some discovered distant relatives halfway around the world. Others learned of indigenous ancestry that had been erased from family memory due to generations of assimilation or silence. For many African American families, the research provided long-lost links to regions in Africa, offering a rare sense of reconnection and cultural grounding. These hidden heritages also speak to the rich complexity of Illinois' history. From early Native American societies to European settlers, from enslaved Africans to immigrant communities from Latin America, Asia, and the Middle East, each wave left a genetic imprint. The blending of these lineages creates a uniquely diverse and vibrant population. The most powerful aspect of this research isn't just in the data, it's in the meaning. For individuals, learning about hidden heritage can spark emotional journeys, prompt reconnection with forgotten traditions, and even shift family dynamics. For communities, it can foster empathy and a deeper understanding of shared experiences. Illinois is more than a place where people live. It's a living archive of human migration and cultural exchange. These genetic findings prove that identity is layered, unexpected, and often more interconnected than we ever imagined. In revealing these hidden roots, science is helping Illinoisans write new chapters in their personal and collective stories. Ones grounded in truth, resilience, and rediscovery. Study sheds light on Illinois' complex ancestry. A groundbreaking study is reshaping how Illinoisans view their origins. While the state is often celebrated for its rich history, industrial growth, immigrant labor, and political milestones, genetics is revealing an even deeper, more intricate story. Recent research shows that the ancestry of people in Illinois is far more diverse and entangled than previously believed. The study, conducted over several years, analyzed DNA from tens of thousands of participants across the state. The results went beyond confirming well-known migration stories, such as large waves of German, Irish, and Polish settlers. It also brought lesser-known histories to the forefront, including ancestral connections to indigenous tribes, African diasporas, Middle Eastern merchants, and Asian communities who settled in the Midwest generations ago. What makes this discovery so powerful is how it challenges simplified narratives. For example, many people with European surnames discovered traces of African or indigenous ancestry. Latino families uncovered deep Mesoamerican roots alongside unexpected European or Asian markers. Even within families, siblings showed different blends of heritage, reflecting how genetics doesn't always follow visible identity. By shining a light on these hidden threads, the study isn't just rewriting family trees, it's deepening our understanding of who Illinoisans are. The state's past is one of convergence, movement, and cultural exchange, shaped by centuries of history across the globe. Every genetic line tells a story that adds richness to the collective identity. As more people engage with these findings, the idea of Illinois as a mosaic becomes clearer. It's not one ancestry or one narrative, it's many stories, coming together in ways that challenge assumptions and invite a broader, more inclusive definition of belonging. This is ancestry not as a fixed category, but as a living, evolving truth. The genetic map of Illinois. Imagine a map of Illinois, not defined by highways or county lines, but by the invisible currents of ancestry that shape its people. Thanks to recent genetic studies, that map is starting to take form, offering a vibrant and complex picture of who lives in the state and where their roots trace back. This genetic map was created by studying DNA samples from residents across Illinois, analyzing markers that reflect global ancestry. The results show significant clusters of European descent, particularly from Germany, Ireland, Poland, and Italy, in places like Chicago, Rockford, and Springfield. But the deeper you look, the more intricate the map becomes. African American communities, especially in Chicago's South Side and parts of central Illinois, show deep links to West African regions like Nigeria and Ghana, with additional European ancestry resulting from America's complicated racial history. Meanwhile, Latino populations reveal a rich blend of indigenous Mexican, Spanish, and African roots, adding layers to areas like Aurora, Cicero, and Joliet. There are also emerging genetic stories, Southeast Asian and Middle Eastern communities in suburbs and small towns, and even descendants of Eastern European Jewish families who settled generations ago. The genetic map reflects waves of migration, displacement, and resilience that aren't always visible on the surface. This map doesn't just outline where people came from, it tells us how people moved, settled, and blended over time. It also reminds us that Illinois is more than its cities or industries. It is a meeting point of global histories and deeply personal journeys. For many residents, this new understanding is both enlightening and affirming. It shows that Illinois isn't just at the crossroads of the country, it's at the crossroads of the world. What this changes? What happens when science reveals that everything you thought about your heritage might be more complicated or more connected than you believed? That's exactly what this genetic research is doing for the people of Illinois. It's not just offering new information, it's changing the way people think about ancestry, identity, and community. For decades, cultural identity in Illinois has been passed down through family stories, census boxes, and shared traditions. But genetics has added a new dimension. People who once identified solely as European are learning they also carry African, indigenous, or Asian ancestry. Families with long-held narratives are adjusting to findings that don't always match the stories told around the dinner table. In many cases, the discoveries are empowering. African American participants have uncovered long-lost African roots, giving them a clearer link to their ancestral past. Others, including Latino and indigenous Illinoisans, are using genetic information to reclaim histories that were once erased or hidden. On a broader level, this science encourages empathy. It reminds us that nearly everyone carries a blend of global histories, many of which overlap. It's a wake-up call that identity isn't about fitting into neat categories. It's about understanding the layers that make up who we are. This new knowledge also affects how we view history. Migration, colonization, enslavement, and adaptation weren't just national stories, they were personal. Now, with DNA as the guide, Illinoisans are rewriting their place in those narratives. Ultimately, what this changes is our relationship to ourselves and each other. By breaking down old assumptions, this research opens the door to more inclusive, authentic, and honest conversations about heritage and belonging. What is next? Now that Illinois' genetic mosaic has come into focus, the big question is, what happens next? This breakthrough in ancestry research isn't the final chapter. It's just the beginning of a deeper exploration into identity, history, and community. One clear next step is education. With such profound findings, educators and institutions can integrate this knowledge into how Illinois history is taught, from elementary school to college classrooms. Students can learn that the story of Illinois includes a complex, interconnected web of cultures and migrations, not just a linear narrative of settlement and development. Another avenue is healthcare. Understanding genetic backgrounds can improve medical outcomes, as certain conditions are more common among specific ancestries. These insights can guide better diagnostics and treatment, especially for underserved communities, whose histories are underrepresented in traditional data. Public dialogue will also shift. As more people engage with their personal DNA stories, conversations around race, ethnicity, and identity are bound to evolve. We may begin to see a greater appreciation for nuance and shared human experience, moving away from rigid labels and toward more inclusive frameworks. On the research side, scientists plan to dig deeper. Future studies may explore how genetic diversity affects everything from disease resistance to adaptation in climate and environment. New samples and technologies could uncover even more unexpected ancestry, helping piece together stories still untold. For Illinoisans, what comes next is both personal and collective. It's a journey of self-discovery, a reevaluation of history, and a bold move toward understanding the richness of human connection. Science has revealed the past. Now it's up to individuals, families, and communities to decide how it shapes the future. Illinois' story just got a lot more fascinating, and there's still so much more to uncover. If you found this journey through hidden ancestry and surprising genetic links eye-opening, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this content. Stay tuned for more stories that dig beneath the surface and bring science, history, and identity to life. Got a theory or a question about your roots? Drop it in the comments. We'd love to hear from you.